What if the person you most wanted to feel safe with was also the person who frightened you the most? Not because they were dangerous or they've done anything wrong, but instead something within you, deep and old and not fully under your control, couldn't quite separate closeness from threat. Wanting someone and pulling away from them in the same breath, craving intimacy and then doing something to damage it or sabotage it, or feeling flooded after sex, but not with connection and warmth, but with something harder to grasp, shame, grief, or a kind of rawness that lasts for days. If any of that sounds familiar, I want to tell you that you are not broken, and it's not that you're impossible to love. And today, I want to try to explain why. Hi, I am Cyndi Darnell, sex and relationship therapist with over 25 years in the field. I work with all kinds of people in all kinds of relationship configurations all around the world. On this channel, we talk about relationship, sex, desire, emotions, connections, and intimacy. Honestly, practically, and without shame. If you are new here, welcome. And if you've been here a while, thank you for being part of this ongoing conversation. If anything I share with you today resonates, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I have a lot more for you this year, and I don't want you to miss any of it. For the last in this series, let's look at disorganized attachment, what it is, and where it comes from. As with every episode in this series, I want to start with an explanation of something critically important. Attachment theory is a framework. It's not a diagnosis, it's not a fixed truth, and it's not a life sentence. Attachment describes adaptations. They're intelligent, logical responses to the environments and the conditions that we grew up in. There is no superior attachment pattern, and there's no shame in any of them. They are information for us to help us understand more about how we are in the world and how we relate to those closest to us. And now this matters here because, especially with today's topic, disorganized attachment, sometimes called fearful-avoidant attachment, this is the pattern that out of all of them carries the most stigma. It's described in ways that can feel the most pathologizing for some of us. And the people who experience it are already often carrying huge amounts of self-blame. So before anything else, this pattern developed for a reason, and it made complete sense given the conditions that shaped it, and it can shift. Disorganized attachment is considered the most complex of the four patterns because, unlike anxious or avoidant attachment, it doesn't represent a consistent strategy. Where anxious attachment hyperactivates the need for connection and avoidant attachment deactivates it, disorganized attachment is caught between both at once. So the nervous system receives two completely different, contradictory signals simultaneously. Reach for closeness, but also flee from it. And this typically develops in early environments where the caregiver, the very person the child needed for safety, was also a source of fear, but not always through overt or explicit harm. Sometimes through a parent whose own unresolved trauma made them unpredictable or frightening, emotional volatility, sudden coldness, a grief or rage that filled the room without any explanation. In this context, the child faces an impossible bind. The one person who is supposed to regulate their fear is also the cause of it. So for the child, there's no coherent strategy that works. And so the nervous system does the only thing it can. It holds both impulses at once, but unable to fully commit to either. So it's important to know that disorganized attachment isn't a failure of character or a failure of will. It's a nervous system that learned, at the most foundational level, that love and tenderness and danger come from the same source. So what does this look like in sex? Disorganized attachment in sexual contexts creates patterns that can be really confusing for the person living them and also for the people loving them. On one hand, there's often a really powerful hunger for closeness, a real intensity of longing, a desire to be completely and truly known by the other. A person with a disorganized pattern can be extraordinarily attuned to a partner's moods, to their needs, to the emotional weather of a relationship. But on the other hand, when closeness actually arrives, when intimacy is real and present, an alarm goes off within them, both hyperactivating and deactivating the impulses to activate at once. It's like having one foot on the gas pedal and one foot on the brake at the same time. And the result is behavior that can look contradictory from the outside and feel like absolute chaos on the inside. So this might look like picking a fight, particularly after a real tender moment or a moment of connection, or disappearing emotionally right after very deeply connected sex, or feeling intense shame after vulnerability, perhaps a compulsion to test the relationship, to push or provoke and see if the other person will leave, because some part of the system always expects that they will. Sex, for someone with a disorganized attachment pattern, can almost always carry an unbearable charge. Sex can be the place where they feel most alive, but also the most terrified in the same breath. Perhaps you know somebody like this, or perhaps you are like this yourself. The body that desperately wants to be held is also the same body that has learned at a foundational level that being held can also mean being in danger. And this is not a contradiction to be fixed. It's a history to be understood. One of the things that distinguishes disorganized attachment from the other patterns is this particular quality of the internal conflict that it produces. Anxiously attached people know that they want closeness, even if getting it is painful. And avoidantly attached people know that they want space, even if something underneath them is actually quietly hungry for more. But disorganized attachment produces a tug-of-war in which both are true at the same time and with equal force. And what makes it particularly disorienting, the intellectual and the instincts are often completely at war. So someone with a disorganized pattern can know clearly, rationally, and intellectually that their partner is safe, that there is no danger here, that this person loves them and has consistently shown up for them. And still, the body, it's like it doesn't believe it. The nervous system activates as if the threat is real, regardless of what the thinking mind understands. And that's not irrationality. That is the adapted self running a very old program, one written before language, before logic, before the conscious mind had any say in the matter. The adapted self doesn't respond to evidence. It responds to experience, repeated, embodied, felt experience over time. And this is also why disorganized attachment can be so hard to shift through insight alone. Understanding the pattern is necessary, but it's not sufficient. And the nervous system needs new experiences, not just new beliefs. And that takes time, safety, and usually a little bit of skilled support. So I want to share a story with you about somebody called Jess. Jess was in her late 30s, having had a series of relationships that she described almost identically each time. It starts as amazing, and then I destroy it, she told me. The pattern was always the same. She would meet someone, the connection would be electric, profound even. She'd feel, briefly, like she'd finally found what she'd been looking for. And then she would become hypervigilant, convinced that her partner was losing interest when all the evidence was to the contrary. She would swing between pursuing intensely and pushing away, sometimes in the same day. She would find fault, pick fights, create distance, and then feel devastated when her partner, understandably, would begin to pull back. In bed, the same dynamic played out. The most connected, intimate encounters would be followed by days of turbulence that she couldn't explain. I feel like I'm grieving something, she told me once, after the best sex of my life. How is that even possible? What Jess was grieving, we came to understand, was the gap between what she experienced in the moment and what she believed she deserved. Her nervous system couldn't sustain the good. It was waiting, always waiting, for the thing it had known was coming, loss. Jess's history was complex, an early childhood marked by inconsistency. A parent whose love was genuine, but whose own unresolved pain made them unpredictable in ways that felt frightening to a small child that had no framework for understanding it. She hadn't been unloved. She had been loved in a way that wasn't reliably safe and consistent for her. And so her adapted self had drawn a conclusion that had been running her life ever since. Love and loss, for Jess, were inseparable. Closeness is at once beautiful and devastating. Don't stay too long and don't want too much. The work with Jess wasn't just about finding the right partner or changing her behavior. It was about slowly and painstakingly at times giving her nervous system enough repeated experiences of safety that it could begin to update that conclusion. And for Jess, she is still in that process because it isn't linear. But she did tell me recently that she stayed present through a moment of genuine tenderness with a partner. And she didn't pick a fight. She didn't disappear. She didn't find a reason to leave. She just stayed, and the world didn't end. And for someone who has spent decades bracing for loss, that's an enormous shift. Okay, so a quick pause here. If you're finding this useful, a like really does help this content to reach more people who need it. And if you want to go further with any of this or anything else in the realm of sex and relationships, head on over to cyndidarnell.com. I have online courses that go deep into understanding your body, pleasure, your desire, and your relationships. And as a reminder, I want to point you to the full series playlist on attachment styles and sex, which connects directly with what we're covering here today. It'll be linked in the description below. So back to disorganized attachment. Disorganized attachment can shift. I want to say that really clearly because people with this pattern are often told, directly or indirectly, that they are too difficult, too damaged, too intense to change. But they are not. They are people whose early experiences installed a survival strategy so early and so deep that the nervous system doesn't know yet that it's safe to set it down. And that's not a character flaw. Instead, it's a body doing its absolute best with what it's been given. What helps, and the research increasingly supports this, is consistent, safe, attuned relationships with therapists, with partners, with friends, with community, and crucially, ultimately, with one's self. Developing an inner relationship with yourself that is less punishing, less braced for catastrophe, and more able to tolerate good things without immediately expecting them to be taken away. Any practices or therapeutic endeavors based in somatics and visceral awareness are designed to work with the nervous system directly in the body where the pattern actually lives. And specifically around sex and intimacy, the work is often about slowing down, not rushing towards intensity, which sometimes we can mistake for intimacy, but is often a reenactment of the original wound. Learning to tolerate gentleness, learning to stay when it's quiet, learning that ordinary, consistent, and undramatic love doesn't have to mean that something's gone wrong. Intensity is not the same as intimacy. For people with disorganized attachment, learning to feel that difference in the body and not just understand it intellectually can be one of the most profound and liberating shifts they will ever experience. We have covered a lot in this series. Secure attachment, what low anxiety intimacy feels and looks like. Anxious attachment, the exhaustion of hypervigilance and the cost of self-abandonment in the pursuit of connection. Avoidant attachment, the loneliness of wanting closeness while the deactivating strategies keep pushing it away. And now, disorganized attachment, the most complex and for many, the most quietly painful. The part of us that wants to go home, yet ultimately doesn't believe that home is safe. And I want to leave you with this. Attachment patterns are not life sentences. They're not your identity. They are a story of how your adapted self learned to cope and survive. Written in an environment that was imperfect, as all environments are, by people who were doing their imperfect best. That story made sense once. It protected you. And now you're here with me watching this video, which means some part of you is asking whether a different story might be possible now. And it is, and not quickly, and not without support, and not in a straight line, but it is. You're not broken. You are someone whose adapted self did an extraordinary job of keeping you safe in the conditions that required it. And your loving self, the part that wanted connection all along, has been there the whole time, just waiting. If this series has been useful to you, I'd genuinely love to know. Leave a comment below. Tell me which episode resonated with you the most, or something that you might like me to go deeper on. These are the kind of conversations I want to come back to again and again. If you want to go deeper with any of this, I have 2 places to point you. My book, Sex When You Don't Feel Like It, The Truth About Mismatched Libido and Rediscovering Desire, is available everywhere, linked below. And if you're ready to do the work, head on over to my website, cyndidarnell.com. I have online courses there that go deep into understanding your body, your relationships, your emotions, your desires, your sexuality, wherever you're starting from. Don't forget to check out the other videos in this Attachment Styles and Sex playlist so you can share the whole series with somebody who needs it. It's linked below. Again, a reminder, please like this video. It genuinely helps more people find it. And subscribe if you haven't already. I'll have a lot more coming for you this year. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of your bodies. They're doing their best. I'll see you next time.